So I think we're coming back to your original question about getting partners or not. I think there are some roles where, you can work with employees, and I think there's some roles where you can actually bring employees on and put them on a partnership track. There are people that you might want to elevate to management, but make sure that the people you surround yourself with as partners are those that if the worst comes to the worst, when you might not be at your best and they might not be at your best and you have a really good argument, you can still look at each other in the eyes and say, we still want the best for each other and for this business, despite we might feel about each other right now. That is critical.
Thank you for the advice. I've been pondering a lot about this, so I have another layer to
go
ponder
for it.
about.
I'm all yours, and I won't charge you.
Thank you for that, Peter. You left me speechless.
You didn't expect that.
No, but I remembered that you have that question for me, so I'm going to switch on the mic.
Yeah, okay, cool.
I had a trump card.
Yeah, good. So when in my podcast, in Brandwagon's podcast on Brand Me, I'm just the host of the guy who've been pimped out to be the host. I noticed that a number of our guests, and I would say a vast majority of our guests, when I ask them, so who are you? They tell me I'm curious. I'm a curious person. So that I've seen, one of the things which really resonates. So my question to you would be in analyzing and having so many people before me, you've been running this podcast since 2022.
Yes.
Kudos to you. Well done. It's really respectful. It's really respectable that you've managed to do this, because it takes a lot of resilience and discipline and consistency. So in your conversations with all your guests, is there one element, value, or characteristic which you've seen in your guests which really stands out, as most of my guests are this type of people? When you ask them these questions like you've asked me,
yes,
what is it that, helped you succeed, or what is it that got you through, or what is it? Have you noticed something? What's the trend in the people that you speak to?
So thank you for the question. That's a very interesting question. I was never asked this question and I never looked into it. I think the most thing I see common is that people don't spend enough time in self-discovery and self-reflection. So when we have the conversation, they actually enjoy spending an hour having this type of conversations. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, most of the guests that I've interviewed or have a chat with, because I don't like the word interview because it's not an interview, it's a conversation, came out of the podcast feeling wow, this was actually a good conversation. Mm-hmm. So that's a common trend that I see, that we don't have time, or we don't dedicate enough time to have these kind of conversations. Mm-hmm. And I know we're behind the mic or behind the camera, but we can be sitting in a coffee shop and we're having a good conversation right before we switched on the camera and the mics. We don't have these kind of conversations. Mm-hmm. Even the way we talk to ourselves. And you mentioned a very, very interesting fact. Someone who's your blind spotter. That's a very cool concept. We don't surround ourselves with these kind of people, mm-hmm. because these people sting, but that's their role. I believe that's a very important role that someone in our support system should possess. Mm-hmm. And not everyone has that privilege. We need to look for the right person to do that, because they need to verbalize in a way that we can understand and accept.
We definitely need to be giving permission to people to look for these things. And you need to come to this from a sense of, you have to be comfortable with being vulnerable. And it's not always very easy to be vulnerable, because you're expecting people to come to you to tell you stuff which you might not like to hear. You also have to be extremely confident that the people that are going to come to you, you have full trust in, because it can be manipulative. Yeah. If you're telling somebody, anything you don't like about me, tell me. Yeah. And they can really use that position.
Yes.
To say, you're this. So it can easily be a position that can be abused. So you have to really be comfortable to listen and then take what you want. Doesn't mean that just because somebody says something about me, I'm going to take it. But if I'm not, then what's the whole point? In today's day and age, we talk a lot about diversity. When we talk about diversity, typically it's about gender, it might be a bit about age, it might be about race. Today we're also talking about mental diversity. But the reality is, if you really want to create a diverse organization, it's not just about gender, race, and all that. It's also about mentality. And it's also about the way of thinking. If you surround yourself with people who are exactly like you, you're always going to have the same conclusions. And you're going to agree that when everything's going amazing, it's because you guys are fantastic.
Yeah.
When shit hits the fan, it's because life threw a problem at you.
Yes.
Because you're all going to come to the same conclusions and you're all going to come to the same solutions.
Yeah.
So I find myself in a position where I think it's so important to really try and get diversity around you. And that diversity is diversity in principles, diversity is in age, but diversity in wisdom, diversity in experiences. Because you can start to see the world in a very, very different light if you have different opinions. But you have to be open. And it's not easy to be open.
No.
The friends I respect most and the people I feel, very close to my heart are the ones who have never had a problem in coming up to me and telling me, Pete, you really screwed up here. And it's not easy to hear. It's not easy to hear when you're the boss of a company, when everybody typically just listens to you, whether you're saying the right thing or the wrong thing.
Yes.
And that it's a position of power. Because I know I go into meetings with clients, and just because I'm the boss, they all listen to me.
Yeah.
When I have 2 or 3 people who are way more educated, I mean, I'm a dropout, I'm a university dropout, way more well-educated, way more insightful, looking at stuff in a very, very different way, who if given a chance have probably a much better point of view.
Yeah.
And they're not asked or they're not listened to. I might say the same thing that they might have just said, but they were ignored just because of age or because of gender.
And because of their position
And
as
position. So you have to be really careful.